Welcome everybody to webinar 4, SAP Process PLM in the Cloud, specifically talking about packaging and responsible design and production, RDP. I'm your host, Lars Olson, Senior Client Partner at LeverX, and stand by as we wait for the rest of the attendees to join from the lobby. A little bit of house cleaning before we start today. There is a Q&A capability at the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to use the Q&A session, and either we'll answer it in line if we have a chance, or at the end of the webinar, we'll go to the Q&A section and answer any of the questions that you may or may not have. So thank you for joining again. This is webinar 4 in our Process PLM webinar series. You will be receiving a link to not only the recording of this video, but also the presentations from today's presenters. So thanks again for joining. I'm going to give it one more minute before we actually kick it off and get to the good content a little bit later here after we go over the agenda and so forth. So thanks again for joining. And we'll give it another 30 seconds or so before we kick it off. Hopefully you're having a great day or morning. In this case of Southern California, it's a nice sunny day here. And if you're in Europe, hopefully you're going to have a great evening going into the weekend here. And for those of you that will be joining us at LeverX in Miami next Monday, let's hope that the hurricane that's going to touch down anytime there doesn't affect Miami in any means there. So with that being said, almost 2 minutes after, let's go ahead and get started. So as we mentioned before, this is number 4 webinar in our webinar series for SAP PLM for process industries. And again, we're going to focusing on packaging and responsible design and production. My name is Lars Olson, your host, Senior Client Partner at LeverX. Joining us is Akam Rosell, Senior VP of Business Development at DSC Software, longtime friend in the CAD visualization space and ECTR. And joining us, Christian Butloff, Chief Sustainability Solution Advisor at SAP, who's going to be talking about responsible design and production a little bit later. With that being said, here's our agenda. Introduction to SAP Product Lifecycle Management, product packaging, then we'll get into responsible design and production and Q&A. Very succinct agenda. A little bit about LeverX. LeverX is known as a global system integrator. We have roughly 800 clients, 1,600 employees, primarily focused on SAP implementations for the last 21 years. But we're also a different type of partners that I'm going to share with you in the next slide or so. We are a global partner, strategic partner for SAP, as well as a gold partner, and that we adhere to ISO standards when we're doing implementation. For customers that aren't an SAP house, we have another line of business called Emerline that can help you with your development needs for AWS or Google or Microsoft, or any type of mobile applications that you want to build on any other platform. I want to just mention again that we're having a huge event next week in Miami, LeverX 2024. It's our 21st year. This is about the 4th year of our event in Miami. And really, we're focusing on a lot of different content, business AI, digital supply chain, of course, intelligent spend. A big topic for many of our customers is around data migration, specifically in Process PLM, maybe moving from S/4HANA and recipe development there into the new cloud formulation or specification management. And obviously, all of our customers are migrating to S4 from ECC, with the timeline running out for ECC support there. But ultimately, we're in the product lifecycle management area that we're going to be discussing today. And we have a complete PLM forum at LeverX for both discrete and process PLM. So we hope that you join us next week in Miami. A little bit about LeverX and the different type of partner that we are for SAP. I mentioned that we're known as a global systems integrator, but really we also are a sell solution. That means we're what most people called in the legacy days a VAR. We sell to the mid-market in select regions and countries, not globally, but in the United States, for example, if you're a mid-market customer, we can actually help you license SAP solutions. Co-innovation is another big area for LeverX. As the last webinar, we mentioned that the formulation capability in SAP PLM was actually developed by LeverX for SAP in a co-innovation partnership. And then on the upper right-hand side, you'll notice that we build our PLM solutions that are add-ons to SAP PLM on top of SAP's technologies. So we really cover 4 of the 5 major partner types within the SAP partner ecosystem. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about SAP Product Lifecycle Management so that we can get directly to the product packaging topic here. So why is PLM of strategic importance for SAP customers? Because it is really the product master backbone for any product development that's a discrete or process manufacturer, right? And we want to create this collaborative development environment around this product master data so that you can develop your products in an innovative way, in a sustainable way, and deliver those products in a timely manner. Obviously, there are many challenges in process industries, just like there are in discrete, but also, the ability to scale your business, right? How do you actually grow your product lines in an efficient way with new product introductions, right? And the complexity with creating new products. Obviously, there's ongoing cost reductions that you want to keep in mind when you're developing products so that you're competitive into the marketplace. You have, in today's role, more and more collaboration development with your external or internal shareholders that need access to this product data. So how do you share all this information? How do you outsource your product specifications and so forth, and do that in a collaborative way, right? And then you always want to be making clean data, right? So how do you leverage the product master data that sits inside of S/4HANA and share that and ensure that your product data, your material masters, your BOMs, everything are consistent, clean, and under governance for compliance reasons, right? So these are some of the major challenges that we see in process industries, and that the process PLM solutions from SAP are well suited to manage those challenges. So the last webinar that we had was on product formulation and recipe development over here. Today, we're going to be talking about package design and artwork. So that was the topic that Akam will cover next. And then Christian's going to talk about responsible design and production and sustainability and regulation and compliances, specifically around plastic taxes and so forth that are in Europe and coming to North America and the North American region in itself. So with that being said, I just want to point out that in the past, when we were talking about SAP's PLM strategy, on the left-hand side, we had the integrations of mechanical CAD, software, ECAD, and so forth using Engineering Control Center. But also from packaging perspective, DSC software has done a very nice integration to the Adobe suite so that the Adobe products and Photoshop files, Illustrator files, and so forth are first-class citizens that are managed within SAP DMS into S4. And Akam will obviously go over that during his presentation. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and hand the stage over to Akam. So thank you for your time, and I'm going to stop sharing here, and you can take the stage there. Thank you very much.
There you go. So what I have here for you is just a brief introduction into what ECTR can do for the process industry. It's basically an extract of what we've created as part of an open SAP course. So it's also from SAP's perspective, the solution kind of to bring together, let's say, all the development data, product development data for the discrete, but also for the process industry side. The PowerPoints will be shared, and there'll be a bit more content coming there. Question is, so what business case are we actually solving? Okay, as a product manager or as a product developer, you want to get an overview of all of your information, and that's really what the whole ECTR is originally designed for. It's inside of SAP, so it's nothing that integrates into SAP. There's no data replication happening between SAP and some outside system. We are actually living and working inside of SAP. What we've done with ECTR is to provide a user interface that is graphical, that is intuitive, understandable, and that brings together all information that product developers need at a glance. You have access to all functionality you need, and that's really the home of product developers and scientists for all your PLM work, so to speak. Specifically speaking for packaging designer, of course, you want to have your package design and everything that goes with it together in one UI, and also all of your work can be handled right from here. So you can see your artwork, you can see, if necessary, CAD data, for your packaging. You have the specification information, the recipes behind it, and pretty much everything around managing packaging as part of the entire product that we have just seen from okay. Now, what's the new thing about it here? I mean, SAP has the capability, right? So you have seen and heard the specification management, there's recipe management, labeling. There's all kind of functionality and really good functionality available in SAP. But what we bring to the table here is we don't create that functionality new. So nothing you see in ECTR is actually a new capability in terms of managing your product data. It's just bringing together all of this information in one comprehensive user interface so that you can very easily work with it and actually make use of all this powerful information in your SAP system, and also to support the product developers by kind of reducing, let's say, the non-value creating work and really focusing on the actual creation of products. And that's actually also where the tangible benefits come from. It's not just, let's say, a nice UI to work with, but it also helps you to accelerate your process, to be more linked with the downstream company, to be transparent, for the entire organization. The ECTR, pretty much, as I said before, it sits in the middle of ECTR, in the middle of SAP, and it connects to any part of SAP that you may have running there. It can be an on-premise solution that you have. It can be a private cloud solution that you have. You can work with Fiori apps. You can work with a new cloud capabilities that we have seen in the previous webcasts. So whatever SAP technology you may use, and even if you use multiple of these technologies, we can all support them from within this one UI. So the information, the data that we see in this UI can actually be combined from all these different sources, and this way actually giving you all this capability at hand without the necessity for you to choose either one or the other, or asking yourself how to bring that together. We'll take care of that, and we'll do that in a way that it's understandable for the product developers to work in. So you have pretty much seen this or a similar picture about the product creation process overall. There's, of course, a couple of phases here, and wherever you see this funny little ECTR logo is where we think we can contribute. As I said, that's how we bring together information. That's how we help the project developers do their work. This can also be, of course, in the specification part of creating the product, the formulation and packaging, the labeling, handover to manufacturing, of course, creating bombs and handing over the information to the production side, but then also all the supporting processes, supply, collaboration, change management, document management. These are all, let's say, parts and capabilities that we have embodied in ECTR to help you do your work. Now, today, of course, we want to focus a bit more on the packaging side, how we do specifically support the packaging part of product creation here. What we want to do is, first of all, we want to have all the relevant objects that we need directly here in ECTR. So that, in the very past, if you go, let's say, in the history of ECTR, it was more focused on documents and then bombs and so on. Now I have also recipes and formulations and labels. I have all the properties and their trees. I have pretty much all the information that describes the product from wherever it's stored or created in SAP, including the visuals, including the documents, the bombs, whatever comes together by defining the product actually comes together here in one overview, and from there you can do your work. Now, what we thought is probably the easiest way to show you how it is just a little demo. So we have created a demo video that gives you just a first glance of how this whole thing works. And we'll also be in Miami. And so if you're there, we can go into more detail there, or you can reach out to Lars or myself if you want to know more about the solution, of course. So now this is where we start. This is the ECTR UI. This is pretty much the home of product developers in SAP. And although it does not look like SAP at all, it is SAP. So everything you see here is the normal SAP data. just presented in a different way. So it's, like I said before, not a separate system. What we want to do now is just start looking for our information. So in this case, I want to look for anything that has 150 milliliters in it. We'll see what it means. Now, as a result here in the quick search result list, you will see all the specifications that somehow have this 150 milliliter in their description. So I'm picking up this specific one because that's what I want to work in. It's the hot sauce that I want to work for. And so now if I click on the hot sauce specification, by the way, you see on the top right in our object browser, you will always see the details of the object that you have clicked on the left-hand side. And if you want to interrogate more, if you want to know more about this information, here on the bottom right, we have a specific window that lets you look into recipe and specification information and their structure. So all I need to do is I drag and drop this specification over to this bottom right window, and then I can expand and look through the entire structure. So there's a recipe down there. I see my tertiary packaging, and if I open that, I see that recipe. That includes the palette, the stretch film, and the secondary packaging. So I can really browse through the entire structure until the very bottom. I can see my primary packaging together with the carton and the tape here. And then finally, if I go into that one, I will see the actual customer unit, the red hot sauce itself, its specification. And if I go even more down, I can see the bottle, the lid, and the actual sauce. So the semi-finished good here. So that's the entire structure. If I click on anything here, you can see how in the top right, you can see the details for that. So at the moment, I want to have a closer look into this bottle specification. I just drag and drop it over into my work folder because that's an easy way of working. So now I have the bottle in my folder here. I can expand, and this is a very, let's say, widely used technology here in ECTR. Whenever you open this little arrow here, you will see a couple of more containers. And these containers, you can configure the way you need them, and they give you additional information from your SAP system. So now I have selected this specification. I want to look in these property trees. I can see all the properties here. Those windows, of course, you can adjust as needed. And now I'm looking into the packaging element attributes. And you see here, for the moment, the length and width and height is not really filled out yet. It's a very, very small bottle at the moment. Okay. So what we want to show you is once I have this data in my CAD system anyway, how can I use this information to drive my packaging specification? That's actually a very nice feature that we have embedded here. So what I can do now, I can go through my linked objects, again, a link that is existing in SAP, and I can look into the CAD model of my bottle design. Okay, so we don't want to look into the actual CAD model now, that's a bit too much. But we can also use the visual file here directly inside of ECTR. And here I can do whatever I can normally do in a visualization. I can twist and turn it around. I can, cut it. I can pick up some measures, all the things you would normally expect from a visualization tool. And this is the normal SAP viewer, nothing that we've invented. And you can use it directly here in ECTR. And of course, this has the 3D geometry in itself, but it also has all the measures in it. Like you see here in the attributes of this 3D design, you have a length, a width, and a height. Maybe a diameter would have been good as well. Okay, but anyway, just to show you the functionality, what we now do is we have a functionality that lets you pick up those properties and transfer them directly into your specification. With this one mouse click, I'm actually reading this information from the CAD data. And as you can see, I'll insert them directly into my packaging specification here to be used for my downstream processes. So that's quite a nice feature to see how it all comes together. And now what I want to do is I want to create a new document. Lars has spoken about this artwork being a big member of our family now of integration tools. We've created an integration into the Adobe world. So now what I'm doing is I'm creating a document in SAP that will capture my artwork for this bottle. That's the first thing I do. So now I have a new document popping up in my ECTR. And of course, now I can just use it and link it via drag and drop to my specification. Now, of course, I want to do the work. I want to actually create my artwork. So with the right mouse click, I'm opening this document directly in the Adobe Illustrator in this case. And you can see that this funny icon showing up here, that gives you access to all the functionality you need to store and save and manage your documents directly in Adobe. So you don't have to go away from Adobe as an artwork designer. You can stay in here, do your save and check in, check out, and so forth. Refresh, as you can see, pretty much all the functionality you need to work with this document. But of course, always coming from SAP. What I'm doing here now is I'm using this prompt and feeding the artificial intelligence that's embedded here in Adobe. I'm asking it to create an icon for a spicy sauce. So we didn't want to spend too much time in actually designing this graphic here. So we let the AI do that, and we'll grab one of the three that were generated. In this case, Stefan has chosen to use this one. And so that's our artwork, our graphics that we have now created in Adobe. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save it back to SAP. And as I said, I can do that right directly from the Illustrator, just like any other CAD tool you may have, Office, Outlook, whatever. Any system that's generating data you want to capture in SAP, I can link via this integration, via ECTR into SAP. So once I've done that, I can now look back into my ECTR. I can see now there has a preview on the right-hand side. You see what it actually is. And it captures, of course, also all the files from the Adobe. Now I do the drag and drop to the specification. And this way I link this document to the bottle specification. And if I update my linked objects container, you can now see that together with the 3D CAD model, I also have the artwork document directly linked to my bottle specification. Now, as you can see, once again, we have the entire structure here of all the specs and recipes and so forth. And here down to the bottle. And of course, you always have the chance from ECTR to move into the Fiori app, into the cloud world, just by this one mouse click. And then you will see the exact same information. We are now on this bottle specification, and there you see the documents that we've just seen in ECTR, including the artwork object that we have just now created. So exactly the same information, just presented in a different view. Whichever you prefer, whichever is more convenient for your users to work with, is fine. Here you also see the attributes that we have actually pulled from the CAD file directly into the specification in here. So that was about it. Some key takeaways. The ECTR delivers a central navigation place, a tailor-made UI for product developers in SAP that brings together all the information and all the, let's say, day-to-day work that you need. It has what we call intelligent process support. We try to understand how product developers work and support this in the best possible way. So not just throw a UI at you, but also think, okay, what functionality is there? What can I automate? How can I assist product developers in the best possible way? And one way is, of course, to integrate all the authoring tools, all the Adobe, CAD, Office, and so forth, all the tools that generate product data, making sure that they have a controlled way to come into SAP, where you then have easy access to recipes, formula specs, labels, everything that defines the product. So I hope that was not too fast. It gives you just a high-level overview of the ECTR, and I'll hand it over back to Lars or directly to Christian. You have to help me there.
Yeah, so if you just stop sharing, I think Christian can pick it up. That was awesome video and demonstration, Occam. I appreciate it. It definitely shows how easy you can integrate directly to the Adobe Suite with a single user interface. So your designers don't have to be inside of SAP at all. They're basically just using ECTR as the interface for storing all that product packaging information. Awesome job there.
Precisely.
With that, I think we're going to hand it over to Christian as he brings up his screen and talk about a little bit about responsible design and production, RDP. So with that, Christian, take it away.
All right.
Perfect.
Should be good now.
Looks great.
Okay, so thanks everyone for attending. So I want to talk about responsible design and production, which is a relatively new product from SAP as a cloud service. And it's really driven by the fact that we see more and more regulations for EPR, so extended producer responsibility requirements, popping up in the world. So in Europe, we have already, 27 members of the EU. We have EPR schemes available where corporations have to pay a fee for the packaging material which they put out in the market. In certain markets, specifically in the United Kingdom and Spain, we have recently introduced a plastic tax where producers have to pay a fee on the plastic included in the packaging material. We see similar themes happening in Latin America, North America, APJ. Particularly in the US, basically, in the US, only 50% of the 80 million tons of packaging waste which was produced is actually getting recycled. So I think that is also the reason why a few states like Colorado, Oregon, and California are now also introducing EPR schemes, and that is will come soon. So basically in mid-25, which is already next year, Oregon or Colorado are expected to have companies paying fees on the packaging based on the material or based on the products that they sell in this region, and then followed by California soon after. So brand owners and producers, are the primary responsible for paying these fees. They need to register at the so-called PRO, the Product Responsible Organization, and then they have to report on a quarterly basis the packaging material which they sold into this market. They have to pay fees based on that and meet certain targets, and unfortunately, there are also fines associated with that in case companies are not meeting those requirements. Those requirements differ by state. So I mentioned, Oregon, Colorado, California, and then also other states will follow. Those regulations, unfortunately, are not all the same by state. They're complex. Every state has their own type of regulations. But it's really important to get the full visibility into the actual data, into the actual bill of material, the packaging composition, and the corresponding plastic and other materials which are in there, so that we are paying the right fees, that we are not overpaying, but that we also avoid to pay any fines. So this is a a high level current timeline which we see, right? So we are here in mid-24. We are already actually starting fourth quarter. And then we in early next year, in March, then going into summer, we expect Oregon to really go live with their requirements, followed by California, Colorado later that year, and then other states following maybe the year after. So that is not long time in the future. That is will come up soon. So it's really important that we start to prepare the data so that we are able to understand what are the potential fees which we have to pay. Unfortunately, not all the rules are defined yet. So Oregon is expected to come up with the final rules in January. So that's why also SAP will then react fast to really enable our customers to create these corresponding reports which are required, and then also paying the corresponding fees which are required. But ultimately also taking this and really moving into having the insights to really become more sustainable in the packaging in the first place, right? Moving maybe to more sustainable materials so that the fees can be reduced. So that's the timeline which we look at. So we do have some experience with this topic because Europe is a little bit ahead there. I mentioned, that a lot of countries in Europe have EPR schemes already in place, and we have these plastic taxes which got introduced like a year ago in Great Britain and Spain. So we see that that there's a high level of complexity which is growing in each of these countries with the specific regulations. So it's not something which can easily be just done on an Excel spreadsheet. So we really see that this is a complex task. It's really important to gain the accurate knowledge of the packaging which you have, and you have the data right in your SAP backend system of the PLM system. So it's really important that we extract the information from there So, but it does require some preparation. So that's why we really recommend to start now, preparing the data to be ready for these EPR regulations. In Europe, as I mentioned, they're a little bit ahead there with the EPR requirements. So we have more than 70 consumer goods brand customers using the tool, which I will present here in a second, Responsible Design and Production, really helping them to calculate those, identify the packaging requirements, calculating the fees, and then ultimately also really driving change. An example here is Henkel, right? Henkel is using the tool, and they really see themselves there in the leadership for reducing plastic in their packaging, and then becoming more sustainable there. And so the tool, I think, helps them quite a bit in that direction. So as I mentioned earlier, right, so the regulations are actually constantly, they're also changing, they're getting enhanced. New states, new countries are introducing regulations. So we are monitoring this so that we can react on that, that we can make a decision, which regulations do we support in the biggest markets, obviously US being one of them. And then what are the changes to these regulations so that we can always be up to date with the latest requirements. So it's important that we measure, all the packaging composition from the primary or to the tertiary packaging, have a full understanding of the corresponding materials included in there so that we can bring that into the reports. But then last not least, it's not only about reporting, right? So we always really want to make sure that it's not only about reporting. We really want to act and make sure that we enable our customers to become more sustainable, to basically simulate maybe different packaging options, look into what is the impact in terms of from a fee perspective, maybe what happens if I use alternative materials, and doing these kind of scenario modeling. So that's really one theme, that we are not only just want to be compliant, we also want to improve. So again, as I mentioned, the tool associated with that is called Responsible Design Production. It's a cloud SaaS service which SAP offers, and it supports all these the different topics I mentioned. So we are monitoring the market there in terms of the APR regulations. We help with a tool to measure the packaging and require the actual packaging and material flow, and then being able to calculate the corresponding fees and create the corresponding declarations of that, but then also helping for, to act and design more sustainable packaging material. All right, with that, let me try to quickly go into the tool. Do you still see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay. So this is the Responsible Design and Production tool. It's Fury based, right? So for those of you who are familiar with that, kind of the tile-based approach which we have here from user friendly. We don't have the time right now to go through all of that, but let me just quickly go here into the dashboard, and by country. So we basically choose a country. So let's choose Germany, for instance. So we have some EPR schemes there. We can look into our, how did we do over the last 12 months, the different recyclable materials, how much of that did we have? We can choose, between recyclable, compostable, reusable kind of material to really kind of see how much of thermoplastics did we had, how much of wood did we had, and so on. And then we can basically, this is kind of the basis for then also any kind of reporting requirement and fee calculation. So when I look here into the reporting requirement, I basically can look here into all the reports which I was generated basically on a quarterly basis. Let me look at the last one which was generated, and so we have here the German dual system, which is the local EPR regulations in Germany, and based on the way they want to have things being reported, we basically see here the different, and this kind of a demo system. Obviously, there's not too much data in there, but we see kind of the different packaging material from glass, paper, metal, aluminum, and so on. We see the fees which are associated with that by kilogram. And then unfortunately, there's no data in here, but we see that the quantity which we basically sold into the market based on our shipping data in the ERP system. And then we basically can calculate the fees and calculate then the total. We also bring back this information, if required, back into S4 to potentially adjust pricing. Okay, let me go back here. Okay, so that would be the brief view, like a quick view into the tool. And we'll go back here to this. Right, just to summarize here, right? So based on the timelines which we see, particularly here for North America right now, with Oregon being in the lead, we definitely think it's important to really start preparing the data today to be ready for those fees which will be on these reports, which will be required to be filed later next or early next year, mid next year. Oregon, California, Colorado being big markets, obviously. So we want to make sure that we have the accurate data, because we really want to avoid overpayment of fees because we don't have the right data and we just made high-level estimates. But also we want to avoid any penalties which might occur if we don't file correctly. So the RDP tool can really help you to gain that, to get these insights, calculate the exact fees. But also, as I mentioned earlier, right, really helping you to drive to a more sustainable packaging by simulating alternatives and then identifying what impact those changes might have on the fee structure. We only have little time here in this seminar to dive into that. SAP has a list of seminars on the topic of EPR in the US particular. For the remainder of the year. I think these slides will be shared. So if you see the barcode here, you can basically subscribe to it. And then we will share on those webinars way more in-depth information than we can do here right now from a time perspective. All right.
Awesome.
So with that, I would like to hand over to Lars.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Christian. Obviously, the train's coming, right? So we know these taxes are currently in Europe. They're now going to be enforced inside of North America. And that really has given rise to the capabilities in RDP. When I was with SAP, it was a big seller because people had to get a handle on the taxes that they were facing in a very short amount of time. And so it got a lot of attention, and you could see by 70 customers in just over a year's time, that's a huge uptake from a SaaS perspective within there. While Alex looks at the Q&A session here, just to let you know, we do have some SAP accelerators for PLM, IPS for workflow and business process automation. We have DataLark for any data migration. This was part of the SAP award-winning innovation solutions, DataLark, an awesome tool. We did a brief demonstration in the last webinar, so if you want to see that in action, you can go back to webinar 3. BMax is really about making sure that your master data is clean, for lack of a better, and it meets your governance standards. And then IQ is really about the IQ DMS is a demonstration that we did in the discrete process PLM best practices webinars. Really makes to simplify finding data inside of DMS and other lightweight applications, just really ease of use of using SAP in general. We want to thank you for your time. Again, my name is Lars Olsen, and on behalf of Occam and Christian, we thank you for joining the webinar. When we get a little bit later in the year, we might come back and do more discrete PLM type of webinars. But if we don't see you at the end of this year, Then going into next year, absolutely, we'll have more process PLM webinars where all the new capabilities, because they're being released on a quarterly/monthly release cycle, there's going to be lots of cool stuff that we talked about coming down in the roadmap. Please use the Roadmap Explorer to see what those capabilities are. And again, thank you for your time. Have a great day and a great weekend.